feel like when you dance?
Daniel Grassl has his second Grand Prix medal in a row, last week in Japan and now in Helsinki. For the Italian, this is a sensational result. Grassl spent a year without competition, having found himself in an unclear story around doping tests last autumn. In September 2023, it became known that Daniel had missed 3 doping tests within 12 months. In doping terminology, these are 3 flags, warnings issued because WADA officers did not find the skater at the address he indicated in the ADAMS system. Shortly before this, the Italian announced that he had left Ettore Tutberid's group, where he had been training since January 2023. The fact of the violation was also confirmed by NATO Italia, the Italian anti-doping service. Although they immediately explained that they themselves do not yet really understand what happened, this is indeed the case. At the moment, there is no decision on whether to apply sanctions to Daniel. He was asked for an explanation. Later, the Italian skater withdrew from all tournaments for the season. And in December, the Italian anti-doping prosecutor's office requested a 2-year disqualification for him. That was the end of the news on the Grassl case. And in the summer of 2024, he was suddenly found on the lists of the Grand Prix series for the season, and posts about training appeared on the athlete's social networks. NATO Italia refused to respond to journalists' inquiries. By decision of the Italian Privacy Authority, we cannot answer your request. WADA even made it clear that all questions should not be addressed to them, but to Italy. You should contact the National Results Processing Body, in this case NATO Italia.
Daniel Grassl returns to competition, span of a year, having missed 3 doping tests.
It was the most difficult year of my life. I didn't go out on the ice at all, not even once. What actually happened? Daniel Grassl told Doria Bagriantseva in an interview. Even to the Christmas City skating rink? No, I had very clear restrictions. It was impossible. I was denied access to any skating rink that was somehow connected with WADA or NATO Italia. And at skating rinks for mass skating, I had to be 100% sure that there were no people connected with sports skating with me. This was also part of the sanctions imposed on me. I tried to find such ice, but it was very difficult. Can you explain what the final decision on the case sounded like? After all, no official information has been published. I received a 1-year suspension. This is the minimum punishment in this situation, because I was able to prove that the violation was unintentional. Let me clarify, a year without competitions from September 1st, 2023, and I was able to train after 10 months. So on July 1st, I went out on the ice in Turin. Whose decision was it? WADA. This is the verdict of NATO Italia, but in close cooperation with WADA. Unfortunately, I can't give more details. Okay, let's rewind. How did these 3 flags appear? In fact, I failed to update my real location in the system 3 times. This happened at different times and in different countries. There were many versions on the internet that do not correspond to reality. For example, they wrote that I missed all 3 tests during training in Russia. This is not true, only the last one happened during my stay in Moscow. The other 2 happened earlier, when I left Italy for competitions in other countries, for example, in Japan. The third case, which happened in Russia, was not even a missed test, but a lack of communication, caused by problems with the connection. During long proceedings, we managed to prove that it was not my fault. How so? The internet was not working. I can't tell you in detail, but yes, I had certain problems with their SIM card, and doping officers should have a way to contact you at any time. And then I had problem after problem with the equipment. Well, okay, this happens the first time, then the second. Were you scared by that point? Very much so. I was in a panic. A lot of people tried to help me then, including our federation. They double-checked how the system worked, helped me keep track of everything. Even before leaving for Russia, I checked the system 100 times. I understood that there was no room for error. In Moscow, I was sure that there were no problems, everything was clear and I was in control of the situation. Unfortunately, this turned out to be wrong. How did you find out about the third flag? It was a shock. It was July 2023. I was at a training camp in Novogorsk. We were together with Nika Ragads, and when I found out about what happened, I started shaking. I was ready to immediately fly to Italy to take a doping test, but they told me it was too late. But I still immediately packed my things and returned to Italy. It was a disaster, because I regularly took all the necessary doping tests, both during training in the USA and in Italy. I didn't understand how this was possible. I was super attentive and careful. Of course, I knew that after 3 flags due to incorrectly entered data in the system, disqualification would follow. I had 2 warnings by that time and only 8 days remained until the end of the calendar year from receiving the first flag. Do you understand now what you should have done differently to avoid this situation? I should have been more careful about everything and checked myself not 100 times, but 1,000. I always had problems filling out all these papers, and I should have asked my loved ones for help so that they would help me not to miss something important. Now my family helps me with this. They have access to my account and they double-check everything many times. Do you remember the feeling when you first went out on the ice after a break? I was overwhelmed with emotions, but, first of all, I was very scared. Strange feelings. You seem to know that you can skate, but you are still shaking. I then told myself that if I can't restore the jumps, I will leave the sport. But after a couple of weeks I started jumping quads again. First I got the Rittberger back, and then I even learned a new quad, the Salchow. It happened almost by accident. I returned to training with such zeal that my legs started hurting from constantly pushing off on the flip and lutz. So I had to learn new jumps, haha. You know, during this forced break, I mentally replayed my quads in my head so many times that I quickly remembered how they jump. I turned on recordings of my performances and studied them frame by frame. And so all I had left were general physical training classes, dancing at home in front of the mirror, and training in the gym also on my own. It's not easy, because you don't really understand how to motivate yourself. What was the hardest thing about the year of suspension? I couldn't get used to the new daily routine, without training. I've spent my entire adult life on the ice, and it wasn't easy to learn to live outside the rink. I took my skates to my parents and took them back to Turin only a month before the end of the suspension. Did you watch the competitions last season? Yes, almost all of them, at home in front of the TV. It was hard because I really wanted to be there, on the ice. But at some point, I realized that this forced pause was even good for me. The thing is, by the spring of 2023, I was completely disoriented. I didn't understand what I wanted, I felt lost, and I couldn't cope with the stress. And so I lived a normal life in Turin for almost a year. I went to university, met with friends, relaxed, and did things besides figure skating. For the first time, I had friends outside of sports, and I felt like I came alive. I also spent some time as a regular student, finished my 2nd year of university ahead of schedule, studied a lot. It was also great that I was able to spend a lot of time with my family. My family and friends have been my main support group these past months. If it weren't for them, I would hardly have managed this situation. I'm lucky, my friends always tell me the truth, don't try to calm me down or comfort me, just so I don't get nervous. They love me and can calmly say what a fool, how stupid you acted, and this definitely helps me not to lose touch with reality. I'm happy that I'm back in Italy, I'm home and it's such a relief. I don't want to leave anymore. It's like I've risen from the ashes and now I'm a new person. And you know, it turns out that if you're happy, even training goes completely differently. You recently wrote a post thanking your haters, who only motivate you to move forward. Do you feel like there are more of them? No, I just realized that I have become stronger. A year ago, such messages hurt me, but now it really motivates me. I have matured a lot. That old Daniel was weak, but now I am a completely different person. The angrier the comments, the more strength and energy I have to prove to these people that I'm not skating in vain. A year ago, all they talked about was that my career was over, and look, I already have 2 Grand Prix medals this season. Do you follow what they write about you on Twitter? I don't have an account there, so nothing gets through to me. I know that there are people there who like to go after all skaters, not just me. They have so much malice and so little love for figure skating that it's not worth paying attention to them. Do you understand why they hate you so much? It started after I went to train in Moscow with Eterai Tutburids. But it doesn't bother me anymore. A year ago, you switched to a new coach, thanking Tutburids for professional support and training. Yes, now I train in Turin with Eduardo de Bernardi. I feel comfortable and calm with him. He knows how to set me up psychologically, and gives very precise advice on technique. While I couldn't go out on the ice, he studied my jumps on tape, so after returning to the rink, he gave me a bunch of advice on what and how to improve. He also immediately said, "Do you want to be the new Daniel Grassl? Then jump new jumps." One of our main goals now is to skate a short program with 2 quads. I understand that this is necessary to compete with the strongest. We also want to create a new short program. We didn't have time for it in the summer. We created the current one, to Chopin's music, with choreographer Benoît Richard 2 years ago. It wasn't the best period of my life, and I want to close that chapter, turn the page and start from scratch. Do you maintain relationships with people from your past, coaches or skaters? We saw each other in Astana with Eterai. We came there for the Denis 10 memorial. Nika Igads and I are still good friends. I also remember Adelia Petrosyan with great warmth. We became friends during my training in Russia. When I left Moscow, she was almost the only one who wrote me something good and supported me. I am terribly grateful to her for all the words she found for me then. She is a very cheerful and kind girl. We often fooled around together during training, for example, throwing snowballs at each other when Eterai turned away. I like her very much, and I can say that now she is the strongest Russian figure skater. Unfortunately, I don't even have any joint photos with her. There is only this one, with the youngest skaters of the group. On the right is the new champion of Eterai Tutburids team, Margarita Baziliak. Do you remember her? Of course, she is a very sweet and modest girl, but she always did incredible things during training. She is very cool.